And we are back with V. von Schweetz, the sweet of the sweet. I couldn't help it. You know, I've done that for years online.
I love it. I love it.
So let me ask you, you know, as a professional reader, so that, you know, any of our new people that are listening that are looking to get into the business, you know, how do you keep your business going and keep clients coming back? Because I know you do so much.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. A lot of it, I believe, has to do with the rapport that I build with my clients. I like for them to leave not only with good advice and a solid game plan, but also the feeling as though they had been heard and, you know, they felt comfortable talking to me. Because in essence, that's what, you know, brings someone back to you, you know,
yes,
is the rapport that you have with that person. So I like to be able to, you know, be in their energy and be in their space and really give them the floor to talk and express. And sometimes they just want to talk and have someone listen, you know, and putting myself aside to allow that for them. And then once it's over, they're just like, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. You gave me so much clarity. I can see clearer. They just needed to talk it out, you know, and have someone to bounce the idea off of. And then they refer their friend. They're like, oh, you know, I went and saw this lady, you know, and she wasn't like, you know, the rest of the psychics. And, you know, it just felt like I was talking to my friend. And they're like, oh, well, let me try and check it out. So I've gotten a lot of referrals as of late. But for me, it's been a lot of social media, a lot of people that are on my Facebook page and mostly my Facebook page have seen me and the growth from when I started to kind of like where I am now and how much I've grown just in reading cards and the gift and skill. And social media, website, Instagram, Twitter, you know, if ever I'm doing anything, you know, definitely putting blasts out, posting when I get feedback from my clients, you know, I call them my BFFs. When
yes,
I get feedback, I make sure I post that and say, you know, people say, you know, I wasn't really keen on going to get a reading, but this it didn't feel like a reading. It felt like I was talking to my friend. And, you know, people enjoy having that connection.
and I think there's an important role that in some areas needs to change a little bit. Because, you know, there's a lot of online psychics and there's a lot of people that read.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no personalism in it. You know, it's just on to the next one or on to the next one. And I think as readers, we have to really make sure that we are invested in our clients and their well-being, you know, and, you know, wanting them to have a positive outcome. So I agree 100%, you know, we have to listen above anything, you know, because it's not always about what's in the cards as much as what the customer or the client needs. You know,
right.
I've had clients sit in front of me and talk for an entire half hour. Not a single card put down. Because all they needed was the talk.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And they'll come back for an actual reading, but there are times when they just need to get stuff out. And we have to let them. And, you know, part of our job as a spiritual advisor is to say, look, I know you need to just blast it all out, unwind, get it all out of your head, you know, so you can start that thinking and focusing and get more clarity by not having all this running in your head.
Exactly. It's like untangling the knot.
Yes.
You know?
You know, and sometimes even if you were to do a reading, if they're in that headspace, they're not going to hear it because they've got everything else running around.
Yes. And a lot of times it's like they have a one focus that they're trying to fix, but then they don't realize that it's knotted and tangled with something else that's in their life that needs fixing as well. And it's just like follow the string, follow the knots, follow the tangles to figure out where the end is, and then untangle that one, and it's like the rest of it just kind of falls away. And that's where the clarity comes. But it's only by listening and following the trail of where the client is taking you, you know, for you to pick up and listen and say, oh, well, here's your knot. Let's figure this part out, and then everything else will be gravy.
Yeah, because, if they're coming for, say, a love reading, why they have such bad luck and they can't find somebody. Okay, well, there's a lot in that. It's just not, get your hair did, get all dressed up, go out and meet somebody. There's a particular reason why people attract certain people or keep getting into the same kind of relationships, and that's the unknotting.
Yes.
That you have to find, and going back to the beginning and saying, hey, this is where it starts. This is what we have to deal with first. Then the others start to unravel.
And I love when you in talking about the love readings and why can't I find love, and my favorite analogy, and I'm a Taurus, so I'm very practical, so I like to give metaphors, I like to give analogies, I like to bring it down to the base level of conversation, part of my speech therapy, but just so people understand. I don't talk above anybody, so people understand where I'm coming from. So when I have love readings and I talk about, when women come in, they're like, well, I go out and, I don't attract anybody. And I always liken it to a haunted house. Well, not a haunted house, but a house for Halloween. It's like, okay, so you have your house all decorated, but is your light on? Meaning, are you open to receive, advances or, people coming to talk to you? Because you can have a beautiful house on the outside, but if your light isn't on, people are going to bypass you,
If your
and that's
heart's
because your
closed,
energy is turned off.
Yeah.
So if your house is gorgeous and your light is on, you're going to have a whole lot of trick-or-treaters come up, I
love that analogy.
Yeah, so sometimes when your house is beautiful and your light is turned off, you get those guys, so to speak, that just want to come up and see if they can vandalize the house, so to speak, because the light isn't on, So it's like I like to put people into a story, and they're like, oh, my gosh, I get it. Okay, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah, and some people don't. Like me, I'm a Scorpio. I'm more of the realist, So I tell it like it is. It's just like, I can't do the analogy. That was never my gifted point. So mine normally tends to be blunt, and then they just look at me with their jaw on the ground. It still makes sense. And they get it, but I could have had a softer approach.
And that's where I gauge my client as well. Some clients I can be, the homegirl, and we can kick it. And some clients I can't. And, I have to take a different approach. But that's where you kind of get into that rapport with your client to figure out, okay, who are you and what are you needing? And how can I help with that? And then I do what I do to be able to facilitate a conversation based on what energy you're bringing me.
And I agree too. I'm still learning that part because for me it was always blunt. Like, what was it? That movie Ghost. Molly girl, you in trouble.
Exactly. You in danger, girl. Yes, exactly that. Exactly.
That's my approach.
And in essence, I say those things, but it's all about, how is this client going to receive it? What's the best way that they're going to receive this news? Whether it be, usually if it's negative or something that needs to be changed, how can I make it palatable? So number one, if they hear it. Number two, they're not scared by it and they want to run out. And number three, they're willing to, buckle down and work with what needs to be done. How can I empower that energy? So it's like, hell yeah, I can take this on and get it done.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people, because they don't want just an answer. They may come in thinking they want that quick fix.
Yeah.
Because you know what happens. Quick fix doesn't fix anything.
Nope. It makes another knot, usually.
So now, as a diviner, can you suggest to our listeners or give them any tips or tricks, to kind of help them along in their chosen path of divination to try and enlighten them more so they can have better readings? I know you've covered a lot.
I think the most important thing for a diviner is to trust yourself. sometimes you have to sit down and take yourself to some rather unsavory or dark parts of you, not necessarily dark, but like the shadow side of you, to figure out what makes you tick. You know, the more that you are comfortable with yourself, the more that you'll be comfortable with receiving messages to be able to give to other people. You know, but when you are so guarded and so fearful, it's hard to move beyond yourself to help someone else.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I don't think there's a place for... I'm not going to say there's not a place for, because everybody needs a place to learn and needs a place to be able to develop. Mm-hmm. However, when you're putting yourself out as a professional,
right,
you kind of have to have your shit together. You know, not saying you don't have problems. Everybody does.
Oh, definitely.
You know,
definitely.
But you have to be able to look at all of those problems, acknowledge those, and be working on those, you know, in a positive way. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be working with other people.
Exactly.
I don't do a whole lot of love readings. I don't have good luck with love. Mm-hmm. Don't come to me for it. I'm just saying.
It's funny because what I find is usually I get mirrors. Like all of my readings are mirrors, you know, and it's usually a lot of things that I am going through personally that either I missed the memo or, you know, the messages that come through me for another person are actually for me as well. You know, I'm divorced and a single mom, and I have so many women that are coming to me that are married, that are like on the verge of leaving their husbands or divorcing, and they're like, well, what do I do? And I'm afraid to start over, and I got kids, and I'm like, wow, this is my life, you know? So I get to, you know, the honor to say, you know, hey, you can do this. You know, it's been done before. But let's just look at, you know, what are you fearful of and how can we work through that? But once again, it's tapping into my darker parts or the parts that, you know, are fearful inside of me to be able to talk about these things with other people. Because if I throw up a shield and a block and I don't want to look at it, I'm not going to be able to help who's sitting across from me with the same problem.
Exactly.
You know,
people don't.
So it takes a lot of deep diving, soul searching, self-awareness to be able to do this kind of work. And that takes practice.
Yes.
So, you know, people, you know, want to throw up a shingle real quick and say, hey, I'm a reader. But there's so much responsibility that goes into reading for other people. You know, it's not an overnight thing. There are years of study. Like I started reading cards when I was like 17 years old. And
me too.
It wasn't until I was, you know, in my 30s that I, you know, actually decided, hey, I think I might be able to do this for other people, you know?
And it does take a long time.
It does. And,
and we're always learning, and we're always changing and advancing and dealing with our own stuff. I look at any form of divination, any form of like healing, massage therapy, Reiki, anything that's therapeutic. I always tell people that it's not for the person I'm reading.
Right.
Because I get more out of it than they do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's the divination I get more out of. The healings I get more out of. They get their healing. They get their readings. They get what they need to move forward in their life. But I unlock other things, and I come out for some reason. I know where and why.
Yes.
I get more out of it. So for me, I find it very therapeutic for myself.
I 100% agree with you, because like I said, sometimes we don't want to hear, we don't want to trust ourselves and lead ourselves in the messages and things that we already know. And it takes sitting across from somebody for us to be knocked in the head and say, hey, dummy, this is what I've been trying to tell you to do. And you're like, okay, fine. I get it. I'll do it. Okay. Leave me alone.
I have been there. I have been on the other side of the table, and I have other spiritual readers that have smacked me upside the head with messages, and right out of their mouth, they've been telling you, and you've been hearing it,